Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Butts-Chester. You guys know who I am, and you know what I like to do on my show. Say it with me. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And that's what we want to do today. We want to get you fired up about my guest. I'll be spending time today with Dr. Vedet Coleman-Robinson. She is a historian, president, and CEO of the Association of African American Museums. So you know what I'm going to tell you to do. Go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, Dr. Coleman-Robinson. Thank you so much for joining me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, I cannot wait to talk to you about the all that you do, but I also realize that I may be introducing you to some new listeners out there. With that being said, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself? What makes you you?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. Thank you so much. My name is Dr. Vedet Coleman-Robinson, and I am the president and CEO of the Association of African American Museums. I am also a three-time HBCU grad, proud to do that. Received my bachelor's at Virginia State University, and also received my master's and PhD at Howard University. So I'm always bragging about our HBCUs because I feel like we have the best talent.
As we should. Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. Now, speaking of having that type of respect for history and having pride in one's self and the all that we do, as a historian, as a leader, how do you personally understand the role of memory in shaping who
Oh.
we are and how we move forward?
That's an excellent question. What I've found as a historian is with memory, we have to keep reminding people of what we've done as Americans and what we've done as African Americans and what we've done just as people who have had slighted stories, right?
Hmm.
And it's mainly because people have traumas. They have traumas in which when they are being interviewed, maybe they don't want to go down that road when you're doing an oral history. But also, the American memory is very short. People think that we are ancient. They say, oh, that's ancient history. It is not. We're about to celebrate 250 years of being a great country. However,
Mhm.
that's not ancient history. I used to be able to touch my great grandmother and my great great grandmother. My great great grandmother was someone who, was enslaved. So that's not ancient, and I'm a Gen Xer. So that just tells you
Mhm.
like, where we are. But memory is always changing, but it's our responsibility as historians to make sure that that memory is accurate. And
Mhm.
that it continues to be in the forefront of American history so that people understand where they came from. I hate to, be so cliche, but if you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. And, I think that we have to continue to do that. I think that that's a big charge for all of us to make sure that we know where we came from and, be able to learn from those past mistakes.
Mhm. I could not agree with you more. I saw someone post an article the other day, and the person said, we should start showing these pictures in color and not in black and white,
Mhm.
because these pictures are the pictures of our parents, and our
Correct.
parents are very much still alive. When we show them in black and white, we put them in a time period that is 18 such and such, as opposed to it being, 1945 or 1965. So
Correct.
you are so right there. We do need to make sure we're holding on to it
Correct.
properly.
Yeah.
Now, you often emphasize that preserving Black history is a year round commitment. Not a moment, not just a month, but something we should do year round. Why is that distinction so important right now?
It's important because our history, there's ebbs and flows of erasure, and the erasure that we're seeing now is very radical. So we have to continue to make sure that our stories are being told, they're being preserved. We're always learning new things about African American history. You know why? Because people's grandparents and great grandparents have had things stowed away or stored away in their houses, and you don't know that, this person was the person who invented this or was the first person to do this, this and that, not just for America, but also as an African American. So it's to me, it's always about finding our treasures and finding our stories, and then making sure that those stories come to the forefront, not just for us today, but then also for those who come after us. I also feel like it's a way of making sure that we maintain pride. Folks are always trying to diminish the work that we've done. And that's, from the beginning. We invent something and somebody else takes the credit. So that is why it's important to always make sure that African American history and culture is 365, and that
Mhm.
we're doing something every day. I love seeing what we do during, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day for the Day of Service. And then I love seeing what we do during Black History Month and now even Juneteenth, but we need to continue. We need to continue to make sure that we're doing something every day to protect and preserve memory.
Mhm. You are so right there. I think about my own experiences with the elders that I know that have done awesome and amazing things during their career. And far too often, we didn't realize that they were history making people until they were a little up in age. Now they're in their 80s or now they're in their 90s. And they say, oh, yeah, I was a part of that. Oh, yeah, I was a Tuskegee Airman. Oh, yeah, I
Yeah,
worked at NASA. Oh, yeah, I did that.
you're
And
correct.
as a Gen Xer, I look back and say, oh my goodness, I know these people who have been such an intricate part of America's story, and we didn't realize the gem that we had in real time. So you are so right. If you have your elder grandparents still in your life, ask them to tell you about their early years. Listen to their stories and jot them down. You never know how you too may be living with an American hero or someone that has done something in community that has made the world a better place. I love that.
Yeah.
Now, as president and CEO of the Association of African American Museums, what do you see as the sacred responsibility of cultural institutions during this season of now?
Well, I feel that while it may not seem like it, I feel that we have a very, and I I say this, but I don't want anybody to misconstrue what I'm saying by saying that I think that we have an easy job. We do not have an easy job. However, our missions are, throughout all of our African American museums and cultural institutions, to make sure that we are uplifting, preserving, and interpreting African American history and culture to the greatest caliber, right? So when I say that we have an easy job, that's the only part of it that's easy. The rest of it is, the rest of it, the collecting and the, creating your wall text and curating an exhibit and making sure that every single piece is done correctly and responsibly,
Mhm.
those things are not the easy part. But I feel like as far as our mission is concerned, our missions at the core, I feel that that part is the easiest part, because it's very poignant. we're here to do a thing. We've been doing this since the Black Arts Movement.
Mhm.
And some would even argue, sometimes I do. I argue with myself sometimes. But sometimes it's Hampton University had the first African American museum. So that dates back to, the 1800s. So when you're thinking about things like that, the only thing that's the easy thing is making sure that it's done, and making sure that our missions are aligned with what we're supposed to do. But the rest of it, making sure that it, from the beginning to the end, I think that our goals and our missions are what carry us through this time, right? Um,
Mhm.
there there is no wavering. Some of our
Yeah.
colleagues do have the ability to say, I'm going to change our mission, or I may have to remove certain artifacts from our museums. We don't have that. We can't do that. If we did that, we will not exist. If we change our missions, we would not be, supporting the communities in which we serve. We would not be doing, great work for the
Mhm.
African American community writ large. So when I look at what the charge is during this time, um, it is to make sure that truth prevails. It is
Mhm.
also to make sure that we continue to show our communities, our respective communities, and I say that because a Black museum is in every community. We collect from the communities, we do our interpretation from the communities in which we serve. So if we don't do that, we cease to exist, period.
Mhm.
And during this time, it's absolutely mandatory that we, maintain integrity and do what it is that we're supposed to do.
Mhm. Mhm. Oh, I love that answer. We must maintain the integrity. I love that. I love that. Now, piggybacking off of part of your answer there, African American museums do tell the story of both the triumph and the injustice. How do you hold both the truth as well as hope together without diminishing either? Is that too, I don't want to say an easy role because it
Right.
is one of purpose and choice, but I don't want to say that it's difficult either. So, how do you find a way to keep that balance?
I feel that we have no choice, right?
Mhm.
If we were to take things out of our exhibits, and uh we would not be able to again have integrity with our the members of our community.
Mhm.
And then, our patrons that come and visit, travel far and wide to come to our museums. Um, we really have we really have no choice, because the minute you do it, and this is before this, this time, the minute
Yeah.
you do it, it's, oh my gosh, they took it down. And again,
Right.
this is before this time. People pay attention, like you
Yeah.
can go into XYZ museum and something was on display. And again, I'm saying before this time to make that very clear. So, you could go into XYZ African American Museum, and maybe somebody's story was on display, but
Yeah.
it's time to rotate. So once you rotate, then it's backlash. Then the, folks are like, well, what happened? And it's like, well, we had to rotate that exhibit to keep it fresh. And, then it's, oh, I understand, but nobody knows how the sausage is made ever. Behind the scenes, nobody ever knows how the sausage is made. But, I think that we just have that charge and we don't have a choice.
Yeah.
It's that is that's the what do that's the charge that we carry. That's the crown that we carry. We have no
Yeah.
choice but to have that balance, because if you also think about it, our museums, um far and wide, uh they have to tell the complete story. So we're
Yeah.
always going to start, depending on what state you're in, and I
Mhm.
say that because that also depends on what year we're going to talk about the enslaved. So we're going to talk about the enslaved in that
Ah,
state, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But if it's unless it's a national level, then you'll get it from, when when boats started bringing enslaved folks over here. Um,
Right.
and usually those conversations start uh in Florida, right? And then we get the conversation about 1619 later. However, I'm sorry, I'm going on a tangent. So depending on,
It's
this is what
okay.
happens when you get a historian on your
Right? That's fine.
on your show. But so it starts depending on what state you're in. That's when
Hmm.
the enslaved conversations start happening, and then we go through and start talking about resistance and
Mhm.
showing the patterns of resistance throughout American history. It didn't just happen once. There were rebellions and resistance that were happening on plantations, and what we were doing prior to the civil rights movement, and then what we were doing after the civil rights movement and leading up to today.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
but if we miss any piece, trust and believe somebody is going to pull that leader, that curator, whatever, to the carpet,
Mhm.
because more times than not, their family was in that museum. I have a very beautiful story for you if I can share this, if we have time. At the
Mhm.
Reginald F. Lewis Museum of African American History and Culture, and this is why I say that there is a story, and I love what you say about interviewing the elders, right? Because I feel
Mhm.
that folks are getting called home, right? Um,
Mhm.
and it's our time to do some oral histories with our families, um, because they are part of a movement of civil rights. They were the first to do something.
Mhm.
Now, while that was already happening, it was the first documented something. So that's why there's documentation that
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know is married to that. But however, I was at the Reginald F. Lewis Museum of African American History and Culture in Baltimore, and I was just, walking around, talking to the staff,
Mhm.
and there was a young woman. She introduced herself. Her last name was Dorsey. And I said, "Oh, are you related to the Dorsey upstairs in the exhibit?" And she
Mhm.
says, "I don't think so. Like, I'm just a Dorsey. Like, that's just my family's name." And lo and behold, I lied to you not. She called her grandmother, and her grandmother said, "What's the name?" She gave her grandmother the full name, and her grandmother said,
Mhm.
"Oh, yeah, that's so and so." And then they decided to have a family
Wow.
reunion, right? So they had their family reunion, but then
Oh.
they took a trip to the Lewis Museum, and that is the power of our African
Mhm.
American focused museums, because we literally are, collecting and interpreting from the communities in which we serve. And it's just a big deal.
Mhm.
It's a big deal. You wind up being a local celebrity and you had no clue, right?
Right.
So, that's the beauty. Where else is
I like
it happen?
that.
Yeah.
Mhm. Oh wow. Thank you for sharing that story. You are so right. You just never know um how we are connected to each other and to the history of the country. I inherited the genealogy gene, if you will, from my paternal aunt, and I love it. I absolutely love it. And I was able to do a thing
Mm,
that prior generations were not able to do, in part because of a particular platform that you use, and they're able to use your DNA and
yeah.
do it on even a more advanced level. And with that, even though we knew a lot, it was so wonderful to be able to not only confirm the stories, but to be able to go even deeper. And because of that, I have gained 20,000 cousins that I did not
Oh,
realize that I
wow.
had.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely amazing and funny how everyone brings a story to the table, right? Everyone has a bit and piece that you simply weren't aware of because someone moved, or um, someone chose not to share that part of their life. So you are so right. Ask the questions, and you just never know.
Yeah.
Your family might be a part of your local history. I love it. I love
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
Well, it is time for us to take a very short break. But before we do, Dr. Coleman-Robinson, if someone wants to reach out to you or follow the organization on socials, what is the best way to do that?
Yes, for me, I'm on LinkedIn as Vedet Coleman-Robinson, and then for the association, we're on every social media Well, I shouldn't say every. Now we're now we are on Facebook and Instagram as Black Museums, so at Black Museums. We do not do Twitter anymore. And I think we're getting ready to jump on some of the other ones, and they will also be Black Museums.
I love it. Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can visit. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Butts-Chester. My guest today is Dr. Vedet Coleman-Robinson. She is a historian, president, and CEO of the Association of African American Museums. Let's jump back into our conversation. Dr. Vedet, I want to ask you about leadership. Your leadership has come during a time when conversations around history and culture are evolving. And of course, conversation is always going to change with every generation, with every new leader. But what has helped you remain steady and clear in your calling in making sure that you continue to walk your purpose path as authentically as you possibly can?
Oh, that's such a good question because, so much happens um, when you are called to leadership.
Yeah.
Things that you wouldn't even think are going to be a problem sometimes do become a problem. Like, for
Mhm.
instance, this isn't even a problem, but I'm just going to share this. I plan an annual conference for our members every year, and I can't even tell you how many conversations I have to have with the hotels about water and coffee breaks. It's the most crazy,
Right.
it's the craziest thing in the world because it's like just bring it out, but they can't just bring it out. So, and I share that with my board all the time about,
Mhm.
these little the how the sausage is made kind of conversations. However, it needs to get done. So I kind of my North Star is always, the Lord and making sure that my
Mhm.
steps just continue to be ordered. I have an amazing partnership with my board members. Um, and that's through happenstance because they're a governing board, so I don't have any say in who's going to be on the board and who's going to get voted in and things of that nature. But I make sure that um, that relationship is tight as partners. Um,
Mhm.
and then I also make sure to build in time with my family. So my husband and my son are super important to me. Um, I know that much to their chagrin, they probably don't always want to hear about AAAM and what my day looked like. So,
Mhm.
I give it to them anyway, but it's nice to have, again, to me, it's really just all about partnership. Who do you have in your life that you can trust? Who do you have in your life that, you could iron sharpen iron, or just somebody being a sounding board for you? I feel that
Mhm.
sometimes, as leaders, and especially women, we have the tendency to want to do it all,
Mhm.
and want to do it all in a way that you pour everything from you into the thing, because you want to nurture it, you want to make sure that everything is just right. Um, and I still do that. I'm not, I struggle sometimes because I want to just pull away, but that's not me. So for me, it's always just finding the balance and figuring out who I can, just bounce ideas off of before I make a move. And again, it's just really all about partnerships. Who do you have in your life that, can help you through the hard times? I do a lot of praying. I do a lot of, I didn't used to meditate, but now I do. I take some
Hmm.
time to meditate for at least, fi 15 minutes a day if I can.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be quite honest. I'm a Sagittarius. I don't like staying still. So meditation and yoga are not for me. They're just not for me. Yoga, I will fall asleep and, it just was not for me. But I at least try to do meditation or just stop for 15 minutes.
Hmm.
When I was in corporate America, they allowed, this was some years ago, um, 2 decades, 2.5 decades to be exact, but they had smoke breaks and I didn't smoke.
Hmm.
So, I've kind of like implemented that. Like, oh, maybe I'll take a meditation break, or you can't see my
Hmm.
air quotes because this is recorded, but I'll take a meditation break really quickly just to kind of center myself and
Hmm.
not get so overwhelmed. So those are the things. And then
Yeah.
again, in those 15 minutes, if I need to make a call to one of my partners, um,
Hmm.
and that's what I call them. Like, hey, I have an idea that I want to bounce off of you, or I'm trying to navigate something and I want to make sure that, I'm
Hmm.
doing this. Maybe not correctly might not be the word, but I'm doing this in a way that won't have too much blowback. That's the biggest thing.
Hmm.
That's the biggest thing in this environment. Just trying to make
Hmm.
sure that we're doing things that allow for the field to be seen but also safe.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's a heavy juxtaposition.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mhm.
Oh, I love that. In the weight of it all, make sure that it is still seen. I love that you are reminding people of doing that. And I think that's where some people, especially on their local level, is where they kind of get trapped or they pause a little bit too long because the task is big.
Yes.
It can be quite daunting at times, but understanding, as we all know, that this is bigger than oneself, right? That
Yeah.
we are doing big work because big work must be done. So I
Yep.
love that encouragement. Now, my last question for you, and I could definitely talk to you for quite some time. Um,
Same. Same.
in 2026, I find that AAAM will recognize 100 years since Carter G. Woodson established Negro History Week. What does that milestone mean to you, not only personally, but what does it mean to you as an organization?
Yeah, so we are very fortunate that we have a partnership with Asala, which is the organization that Dr. Woodson established.
Mhm.
Um, and the reason it was so important for us to highlight 100 years of Negro History Week, which turned into Black History Month, is truly because without it, our field would not exist.
Yeah.
Period, right? Like there would be no let me preserve, let me protect, let me interpret, but let me uplift. It may have come later, but 100 years is significant. And
Yeah.
then because we have some museums that are over 100 years old, I felt that we couldn't be in this moment and not talk about it. We're celebrating America turning 250, but this is also a milestone for us. So we need to,
Mhm.
step into it and be bold and brave. But then
Mhm.
also, what I said earlier about um, we just don't know with this environment how things are going to go, but we have to do it. We have to do Black History Month.
Mhm.
Last year when, the EOs started coming out, we were in talks with some of our members and they were wondering, like, how do I do, Black History Month? And I said, you have to. I'm sorry, that's the charge. We have to do it. So while we have to do these things, because number one, I mean, we would not exist if we didn't do it, right? Um, so we shine the light on us during Black History Month. But I wanted us to be bold and just step into it, and not shy away. So that's where we are today with conference and making certain that we talk about those things, and talk about why we're here. and that we will not be moved. It's an important time for that. I think that if we shy away, we're kind of putting ourselves in a situation where, and I can tell you, none of my members are going to shy away. We are not those types of we are not those types of people. We are just that's not us. But in an alternate universe, if we were, we are, aligning with a different program, and aligning with a different program means that we will cease to exist. So we just made sure that we're being bold about it. And it's been absolutely beautiful to speak to our members about what this time means, what we're not going to allow for its intimidation, and how we're going to stand 10 toes down for our museums and for our fields. So it's absolutely beautiful to see what's transpiring, and what the next steps are.
I love it. I love it. Listeners, do you see why now? Yes, of course, she was invited to be a part of our Black History series. Still we rise, still we lead. Dr. Vedet Coleman-Robinson, thank you so much for being a guest here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I have enjoyed my conversation with you today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Now, before we go, if you will, Dr. Vedette, can you remind everyone one last time if someone wants to follow you on socials, if they want to find you on the internet, what is the best way to do that?
Yes, on LinkedIn, I'm Vedet Coleman-Robinson, and on socials, on Instagram and Facebook, we are at Black Museum.
I love it. Thank you again for being a guest.
Thank you.
Listeners, I hope once again we have enlightened, inspired, and empowered you. You could have been anywhere today and you chose to spend it with us, and I thank you for doing so. As always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye bye.